We all experience the urge to escape the crushing weight of our daily responsibilities. When the pressure peaks, we rent an isolated desert home, lock the doors, and try to leave the rest of the world behind. To actually relax, our brains have to actively dial down our natural threat detection systems. We convince ourselves that because we are on vacation, we are safe. This diagram illustrates a psychological concept known as the intuition trap. When we spot a subtle threat, our gut instinct sounds the alarm. But rather than responding to the danger and risking social friction or ruining the trip, our brain overrides the warning, routing our thoughts directly into rationalizing the anomaly away. Human predators rely on this exact vulnerability. They let us do the heavy lifting, using our rationalizations to slip right past our mental defenses. By refusing to appear paranoid, we unwittingly invite stalkers to study us up close. You can see this cognitive blind spot across incredibly different environments. Take a chaotic music festival, a crowded California beach gathering, and an isolated desert property. This photograph shows the dense, chaotic coastline of San Diego. In an environment exactly like this, a young woman taking sunset photos for a friend noticed a man staring at her in the background of her pictures. To avoid interrupting the photo shoot, she brushed it off and stayed on the beach. At the massive Coachella Music Festival, a 26-year-old woman noticed a scruffy 35-year-old man in heavy boots hovering in her periphery. Because they had taken Molly that afternoon, her friend convinced her she was simply experiencing drug-induced paranoia. Here you can see the vast, empty expanse of the desert horizon near Palm Springs. A couple renting a modern Airbnb deep in this landscape woke up to faint thumps against the side of the house and a distant voice calling out in the dark. Surrounded by miles of sand and scattered brush, they convinced themselves the noises were just the house settling, temperature changes, or local wildlife dragging against the walls. In all three environments, the victims explicitly chose psychological comfort and social conformity over investigating the physical reality of their danger. Predators eventually drop their camouflage and force their targets to deal with the physical reality of the situation. At Coachella, the man in the boots finally pushed his way through the crowd and cornered the victim, hitting on her over the loud music. When she turned to pull her friend away, she realized her friend was gone, leaving her isolated in an overstimulated panic. The San Diego stalker appeared at the victim's bedroom window late at night. Minutes later, he ran up the exterior stairs, entered the home, and violently threw his entire weight against her locked bedroom door. In Palm Springs, the stalker deliberately triggered a path of backyard motion lights. When the boyfriend stepped outside with a knife to investigate, he followed shoe prints to a closed utility shed. From the darkness inside, a calm male voice asked, "Excuse me, could you open the door, please?" followed by a quiet laugh. The rationalizations collapsed in an instant. These calculated human predators were now dictating the terms of engagement, having waited for the exact moment their targets were most vulnerable. When daylight breaks after a terrifying encounter, survivors often cling to the hope that they overreacted or had a bad dream. The Coachella victim woke up to find muddy boot prints staining the hardwood floors of her rental. The tracks led from the locked front door, straight down the hallway, and stopped perfectly at her bedroom doorway. The San Diego victim discovered the stalker had bypassed the home's exterior locks entirely. While she was bracing herself against her bedroom door, the intruder was quietly stealing a camera and clothing from the adjacent room. As the Palm Springs couple hurriedly packed to flee, police pulled a dirty baseball cap from behind the living room couch. It didn't belong to either of them. The man in the shed had already been inside their home. Discovering physical proof removes any comforting doubt. It forces the victim to accept the reality that a stranger was standing over them while they slept. The physical threat ends once the police arrive or the victims evacuate, but the psychological impact remains long after the trip is over. The Coachella survivor still deals with hypervigilance, compulsively scanning the doorway of every room she enters. The victims are also met with the isolating apathy of the property owners. The host of the Palm Springs Airbnb received desperate messages from the couple about the intruder, read them, and completely ignored them. We pay for short-term rentals under the assumption that the space is ours, but every rental is an unfamiliar structure with security gaps we have no way of auditing before we arrive. When you notice something wrong, Do not let social pressure, the desire to relax, or the fear of looking paranoid silence you. Your rational brain will always try to keep the peace. Your gut instinct is the only alarm system that actually wants to keep you alive.